The University Grants Commission is in the eye of a storm. The entire statutory body's new guidelines to prevent caste-based discrimination in colleges and universities have really triggered an uproar among upper caste communities who claim that the new rules are exclusionary. Uproar is over the new UGC equity rules. It replaces 2012 anti-discrimination framework, attempt to prevent caste-based discrimination. OBCs now under the ambit of anti-discrimination rules. Earlier framework was limited only to SCs and STs. Discrimination on campus made a punishable offence. Colleges to form equity panel to probe complaints. Equity panel to have SC, ST and OBCs representation. Rules are silent on upper caste representation in this entire panel. Now here's the clause that the new guidelines has ignited a huge storm. And this is what it reads. The contentious clause says, quote, caste-based discrimination means discrimination only on the basis of caste or tribe against the members of the scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and other backward classes. The Education Minister has assured that there will be no discrimination whatsoever. No one can misuse UGC's anti-discrimination rules, will not allow anyone to misuse the law. Now, Neeraj Atri and Hindol Sen Gupta are with us. Let's get their thoughts. One book, viewers, comes to mind. I have limited time, so I will not peruse through this book. This is Who is Raising Your Children? This was written 2 years ago by Rajiv Malhotra and Vijay Vishwanathan, who said this is what is going to come into your institutions. This entire critical race theory, or CRT, which they highlighted in Snakes in the Ganga, will manifest in our educational policy, where oppressed and oppressor, white and black, will become Brahmin or Savarn upper caste and the non-upper caste, and that's how this entire lexicon will change, and these rules will be brought into our education system, further not bringing equity but actually bringing further reverse discrimination and, most importantly, compromising merit. Hindol Sen Gupta, your thoughts, and then Neeraj Atri.
So I'm appalled and absolutely shocked that in 2026, rather than completely talking beyond caste, looking at an India where this caste issue is finally put to rest, we are bringing it back as the front and center of our conversation about social and academic life. I understand that there is a Supreme Court diktat on which this has been done, but this really should be debated and deliberated very thoroughly. Please remember, also the other thing that most people are missing, India has fought for many, many years caste legislations created by its enemies in different parts of the world, in the United States, in the United Kingdom and others. Indians have vigorously fought back against this in California and other places. Today, if this actually becomes the norm in India, India's enemies will use these examples to push through caste legislation in different parts of the world to the great detriment of Indians and to the great detriment, it cannot be avoided, the great detriment of Hindus around the world. So all of this really needs, we really need to think about this very, very carefully. I understand that there is a Supreme Court diktat, but this is shocking that it's 2026 and we are still obsessed with this one issue, caste.
Neeraj Atri.
Yeah. Thanks, Anand. First of all, good evening to you, all your viewers, and Hindol Sen Gupta. Anand, I would second what he was saying. The problem is that these guidelines, they could have been caste neutral also. They could have been neutral in all the aspects. Because in this way, the way they have been presented, these guidelines are a sure recipe of converting our educational institutions and campuses into a war zone. The primary focus of a student when he enters a college is and should be on studies. But what these guidelines are going to do is, they are going to push him or her into such a corner that it will be like walking on eggshells. The first thing they will have to be careful and conscious of is their own caste. And ironically, as citizens, we have left this caste nonsense far behind. But it is our politicians, our so-called people at the helm of the affairs who are trying to bring it again back into the discourse, probably to serve their partisan politics, myopic politics, whatever we may call it. But had they been sensitive towards what an educational institute is meant to do, that is to impart education, quality education, so that we have a better future, they would not have brought such foolish, I would say foolish regulations into the public domain. That would be my opening remark here, Anand.
Well, I'm just coming through this entire critical race theory being mainstreamed and UGC being weaponized to try and bring in this entire curriculum. Now, they mention it in this book, Who is Raising Your Children. It's a very long introduction and very, very comprehensive. And it shocks that they had predicted this, that the critical race theory, page number 6, I'm reading, that this is the theory. After the Second World War, American Marxists formulated the critical race theory as a new intellectual framework. Page number 5, I'm reading at the bottom. And they are saying that often associated with wokeism, CRT posits that systemic, unconscious, pervasive racism is embedded within the core structures of Western society affecting government, financial and corporate institutions. This endemic racism perpetuates the oppression of certain minorities. The theory emphasizes the difference between being not racist, which it views as insufficient for dismantling systemic racism, and being anti-racist by joining the fight and actively challenging personal biases, institutional practices to dismantle old structures. What it then comes out and says is that the critical game after Black Lives Matter, I'm just going to skip this because there's a lot. Now, the following are the prominent examples of expanding coalition of the oppressed. So, who's the oppressed and who's the oppressor? This entire lexicon changes when it comes to Bharat. So, blacks are recruited against white, that's the birth of the critical race theory. Dalits are recruited against Hinduism, birth of the critical caste theory. Now, this is something that we are now seeing, that you have assumed that the oppressor will be an upper caste and the oppressed will be a non-upper caste, and you're only expanding that scope without any guardrails. Hindol Sen Gupta. Coming to you, Neeraj.
This is very, very scary.
Yes, Neeraj.
Anand, the problem is that this condemns us. This condemns us to perpetual conflict in society. From the very moment that a student enters a college, this condemns every student into perpetual conflict. Tomorrow, students may have a quarrel with one another. They may have an argument about something. They may have, a sports event, some competition. Everything will only be seen through the lens of caste and caste alone, as if there is nothing else in our life, no other identity but caste that is foregrounded constantly. By doing this, what is happening is that they are never allowing any human being to even forget for a moment that caste is just one aspect. And in fact, I grew up in Calcutta. Many people don't want to believe this, but I grew up in Calcutta. We grew up with no caste consciousness. Now, someone may say this is my privilege, but the fact is, many people from many different backgrounds in India don't grow up with a caste consciousness, and yet you want to essentially foreground and underline that consciousness at every given opportunity. And the worst place to do this is in education institutions, the one place where people should go and through knowledge hope to really go beyond such distinctions. Sadly, that's where, and think about it, many universities are highly political in our country. This will only mean that the college political groups or parties will pick up this and create a whole new level of conflict in every campus at a time when India is really looking to grow to a whole new level, $10 trillion, innovation. We are doing great for, FTAs, we are pushing trade. Is this the kind of, workforce? Is this the kind of people we want to emerge out of our college campuses who look at everything through caste? I also want to make the point, Anand, that at a time when the West itself is throwing out this wokeism, is throwing out these critical race theory kind of theories, why are we embracing this in India? This is so harmful for us.
Yes, I've got to wind up. Neeraj Atri, you were saying something. Please complete, and then I'll wind up with what's mentioned in this book.
Yeah, 2 points. One is, like you rightly mentioned, the critical race theory is being converted into critical caste theory. Another template that is being followed is, which is in playing at the background is, remember the Rwandan genocide that took place in 1994? The template is exactly the same. What had been done was, the politicians were creating this exploited versus exploiter binary, oppressor versus oppressed, and that was being pushed through educational institutions, and they had rigidified these partitions. And as a result, when that critical moment came, because they had been continuously injected with this toxic propaganda that these guys have been oppressors for you historically. So you have a right to perpetrate similar or more atrocities on them. The moment they got chance, we saw what happened in 1994. 8 lakh people were killed within 4 months. A lot of research has gone into this, and this is exactly the road which we are following, unfortunately.
Well,
Second,
yeah.
Second is now there is this one spokesperson of a political party who was saying that the upper caste should be trapped into these laws because they have doing these things. So combine these two, and had it been factually correct, we would have accepted that yes, there have been oppressions. So let us forget it and move forward. But the history proves us that, ironically, it has been proven by someone who was a very staunch Gandhian, who went to England, studied the books, and then he told us that when the Britishers were uprooting the system present over here, it was the Shudras who were in large numbers studying in the Gurukuls, and even Shudra teachers were educating them. Unfortunately, the missionary framework removed all those facts from our narrative and put in something, the result of which we are looking now.
See, removing facts from our narrative and replacing it something is something which is continuing from the time they realized that they need to uproot us from our educational systems. And this was soon after the mutiny, and we know who engineered it and started it. We know those generals, and we know those members of the British East India Company who did it. But today, modern day, I'm just going to wind up with this flowchart on page number 10 and page number 12. I don't have the time to read through this, viewers, because we are way over time. But if you go to peruse this book, Who is Raising Your Children, it will perhaps open up your eyes, saying that this was predicted 3 years ago, this is going to come our way. And it has. And sadly, it's being pushed by the Niti Aayog and the UGC. Think about it. We're going to wind up on that. Thank you, Neeraj Attri and Hindol Sen Gupta. Also, just playing out a small portion of a conversation we just had with Mohammad Ali Siddiqui, Secretary General, Bangladesh Human Rights Watch. He's got some very interesting take on what's happening in Bangladesh. Listen in. Namaste, Jai Hind and Vande Mataram, in conversation with someone who's not